Welcome to the Sounds of Chicago podcast, brought to you by the Chicago Music Guide. Hello, my name's Mark, and this is a podcast dedicated to the vibrant local Chicago music scene. Chicago has a very storied history when it comes to music. We hope to talk to and capture the feeling of the thriving local scene. Today, we will be talking to two artists that are a very unique duo that bring a good time party music and darkness to their performances. Two individual solo artists that found they needed to form a league of their own. Eric Stafford Dinse and Eric Peter Schwartz, together known as the League of Erics. Hi guys, how you doing?
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's good to see you. So, I got to start out with a couple of easy questions, a couple of softballs. How did you start playing guitar? Where did you start?
I started quite a long time ago. As so many people you see performers on stage, there's a certain point where I didn't even distinguish what kinds of music. It was just like, they're up there playing guitars, that's cool. Mm-hmm. And then you get the guitar and you start to appreciate the instrument, and then the influences start coming in. For me, that would have been in the 70s. Okay, that's how long ago I'm talking.
Who did you see that was cool then?
As much as they're not one of my favorites, I grew up when the Beatles were still around, so it's like, that's very cool to start off with. Get into the 70s, then you started seeing some of the harder rock stuff. Like Kiss made a big impression when they first came along, and then just I went from there to the UFO, Thin Lizzy, punk rock. A lot of they were all guitar-driven music that influenced me.
Mm-hmm. So, and what was it about Kiss that really drew you?
That was a 1-2 punch. I saw them when their first album came out. They were on a Friday night show, and never heard of them. They come out, and I am still a big comic book fan.
Okay.
So that was right there, the best of both worlds. They're playing music that's rocking, and they look like they stepped out of a comic book.
Right.
So
didn't they actually even make a comic?
They did. It was much later on, but they probably had that influence initially. But and to be fair, I liked the music too. It wasn't just the image was great, but it's like everything I wanted at that time.
And I think I remember, this might be apocryphal, but the comic book that they made, I think that they put their own blood in the
That's the story.
That was it.
Yeah.
I think I've got that comic someplace.
Oh, cool.
It was done on Marvel. Did it, of course.
Yeah, they did two special edition comics. Yeah.
Is it possible to see Gene Simmons in the MCU then?
Well, he does technically exist in the MCU, I would imagine. But they'd have to pay him more than they want to, I'm sure.
There's some licensing that I think Marvel's not going to cough up for.
Not even the big mouse is going to pay for it.
No.
I don't think we'll see Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park on Disney Plus anytime soon. No. I don't think so.
So that would make Kiss Disney princesses then, if that was the case.
Ace for sure.
Yeah.
Ace for sure.
So, all right, well, let's turn it over to...
I started playing guitar in 1982. I was taught by a nun who had great legs. And that sounds bad, but she was the first nun I ever saw that wore a knee length.
Okay.
And she was probably younger, and actually it was a nun I had a crush on, which sort of informed the rest of my life.
Was that part of the musical influence too?
No, the musical influence all came from, my dad used to, my mom worked evenings, so my father, while he was doing up the dishes or whatever, would put on back when you could put a stack of 45s on the player, he would just put on a stack, the original mixtape, and they would drop, and I would sit in we had a bar in our family room, so I would sit on a bar stool in front of the stereo, listening to music, playing my lightsaber, my plastic lightsaber. So I always wanted to play guitar, and my folks liked really uncool music, but song-driven music. So the stuff I was listening to is their favorite stuff from like the 50s and 60s, and then like the really uncool stuff like John Denver and things like that informed songs and songwriting for me. And then I found Kiss was like the first band I found that was like my own. And then when I had the option to, because I was going to Catholic school, and they offered free guitar classes to then play in front of in church. They would do a folk mass at church with a bunch of the kids playing guitar. So I started learning and was performing in front of audiences within like 3 weeks. They taught me like 4 chords,
There you
and
go.
I was off playing the music of Reverend Carrie Landry,
Wow.
who at church.
Also a big influence in your life.
Yeah, and then I went electric when I saw Back to the Future,
Okay.
because I was like that. The Johnny B. Good scene was like, I have got to get an electric guitar.
It was your Dylan moment.
Yeah, it was.
I'm
Yeah,
going
yeah,
electric.
yeah, exactly.
So then, what was your first band experience then?
I'll let you field that one.
I didn't get into a band until I was in my first couple of years of college.
Okay.
And it was a good friend of mine said, "Hey, I'm putting this band together. You want to play guitar in it?" And I had been dying to be in a band. I never was in a band in high school at all. I was too shy, and also, to be fair, I wasn't that good either. So I got into this band, and besides being the first band that I ever got to perform with, it's also a band that helped me get into the Rolling Stones, because I wasn't a Rolling Stones fan, but all they were doing was Rolling Stones covers. So I'm learning these songs and going, hey, these are pretty neat.
You were in the Rolling Stones? That's cool.
Yeah.
So the first show we did was a gong show / talent show, and we won. And this was like the coolest, we did like 4 songs. And it was the best experience I'd ever had in my life at that point. I'm like, I'm playing music in front of people, and people are liking it.
Yes.
I mean, granted, it's half-assed Rolling Stone covers, but
it's
it was
feedback.
that was the first
Yeah.
thing. And surprisingly, I didn't last in that band, but that's sowed the seeds, and I went from there.
And then what was the next band then?
The next band was we were just talking about it on the drive over here.
Yeah.
I'm going to put in parentheses, new wave band, because this would have been about 1980.
Sure.
It was really just a cover band, but we were doing new wave songs. And that was a learning experience too.
Yeah, it's a pretty big blanket term, new wave at the time.
Yeah, back then that was supposedly edgy. It's like alternative was when
Yeah.
it first came around. So and it's funny because the person who was in charge of this band, she was only interested in. She was still thinking in terms of like regular cover bands. So we're doing these things. All of a sudden, we're doing new wave things. She was like, "Let's learn a Supertramp song." And we're like, "Okay." That was sort of the
Supertramp is the death of new wave.
It was for that.
I'm
band.
sure. Yeah.
So what kind of new wave songs were you doing?
I remember because it was still fairly recent. We did Life During Wartime.
Oh, wow.
We did Lust for Life,
Okay,
Iggy
yeah.
Pop. We did Turning Japanese by the
Okay,
Vapors.
yeah.
Ultravox. I just bought an album by them, and we did something from the Vienna album called New Europeans.
Okay.
I don't remember whatever. Oh yeah, the Ramones, because I was a big Ramones fan. So we did. I Just Want to Have Something to Do, which is from the Road to Ruin album. Also the Rock and Roll High School movie, which was one of my favorites.
Right.
So we were doing that, and like I said, because some of the people in there were still in the mindset of, oh well, we have to play these things. Like we started doing Supertramp, and we did a Heart song, which was like. Like that was the beginning and the end for the band. Yeah.
Right, sure.
Wait, I got to know which Supertramp song you guys played.
Dreamer. Because we had a keyboard player and she was really good,
Okay.
so she kept using like, well, I have to be able to show people that I can really play. So she,
There's a lot of keyboards in new wave that you
Yeah.
could have
yeah,
done.
but like I said, this is the ultimate in we're putting a band together and we have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then every
Cool
element
experience.
sort of comes in, and
Yeah.
then it ends up.
Right.
I think we did some Bowie too, but that was like a good middle ground.
Right.
You could still throw it as new wave, but it was also established.
That is sort of the downside of when you start a band, picking the genre of the band is like even before you perform. Like, hey, when you start building it, you're saying we're going to be this,
Right.
because it takes you longer to find your voice sometimes. But then again, you want to entice the musicians who want to audition, but it can be a downfall. I was just watching an interview with REM where they were saying,
Oh, that latest one.
the latest one they just did, and they said we didn't really find our voice for about 6 months.
Sure.
They were just doing like covers of things, and then they found their voice. So
Supertramp covers, probably.
right, all Supertramp.
In a way, that's actually true of us as well. When we first started doing stuff, that there have been a lot of songs that we sort of started off doing that we don't do anymore.
Yeah.
It's just like I know there's one we used to do one of Eric's, and it's a really good song, But there was a certain point we just realized it doesn't fit us anymore.
Just kind of grow out of it a little bit.
Yeah,
I hate to say it because it's still a good song. It's just it didn't fit what we were doing.
Yeah, we've worked to build an identity for the League of Eric. Like it's an attitude, it's a thing, and he'll write a song or I'll write a song, and we'll know even before we bring it to the other person if it's a League of Eric song.
Yeah.
Too much romance, not in the League of Eric song.
Okay.
So.
Well, I mean, okay, so we've got your basis established, and then so we're starting to get towards where you guys are a unit. So in 2017, how did the magic happen?
Well, we actually met prior to that. We have a mutual friend, a guy named James Aboud, who used to perform in the area as a Buddha Bard, and he was hosting. They would have. They did an open mic at the Chicago Bagel Authority, and I forget which one.
Surprisingly, it was the one on Bellman. Surprisingly, actually a good place to have an open mic. They had a great. The food was good, but they had a good space for it. There was a nice stage, so it was a good place to perform.
And he was really good friends with James. They were in a couple of bands together, and James and I had gotten to know each other. He was the featured open mic performer, so he would do he would do a bunch of songs, and then they'd bring up a couple of the open mic people and things like that. And he invited me to come out and play. So it was the first time I ever met Eric, and I didn't really officially meet him during that, but I fell in love with his guitar case, because his guitar case was completely covered with parking meter stickers from Chicago, from every gig he'd done.
Okay. That's an art thing.
And I met him briefly there, and then it was just sort of, and then he came to a show I did at Kiss the Sky out here in Batavia, the record store out in Batavia.
I live in Naperville. He lives in Norris. I was like, well, I should go do that.
Yeah, and it just sort of eventually he and I started playing together because we had done some round robin shows, and then I was doing a show at a place where there was never an audience, and it was like an early evening, and there was and I said, you want to just come do this show with me, and we'll just take turns playing songs to entertain ourselves, because there's never an audience.
Yeah. Okay.
And we started doing that, and then it was like, you want to play on this song of mine, you want to play on this song of mine, and it just sort of grew, and then we started going to open mics together, and it really grew organically. So when I say we started, the League of Erics officially started playing together in 2017. Okay. It was that was when we became the League of Erics as a thing. And then in 2021 is when we both chucked out the solo stuff and said, we're just going to go all in on League of Erics. Yeah.
Okay. It's been interesting, because I think at one time we were probably both still very protective and proud of our solo stuff. Mm-hmm. And I know within the last year and a half, it doesn't have the same charm for me anymore.
Yeah, same here.
It's especially true because he had to bow out of a gig due to an injury. Right. And so I had to go do a solo thing. And
a year ago today, by the way. It was a year ago today.
Wow. And I get up there, I do the solo thing, and it was miserable. I was like, okay, this is not as much fun. Right. I'm not connecting with the audience as well. It was pretty much like a big meh. Why am I, this isn't working.
Yeah, we both started catching on pretty quickly that there was more. It was more interesting.
More as a group.
Absolutely.
Right.
People paid more attention to us, and there was, my solo stuff was sort of, it was good. It was fine. People liked it, but I don't think it was terribly memorable. And so, but people remembered when we were the League. So we just sort of said, I'm not going to, because he just had pneumonia about a month ago. Wow. So I had to take 3 of our gigs, and do them solo. And I hated it. Yeah. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So
besides being sick, it's like I hated missing shows, especially because one of them was in Madison, and I've been dying for us to play at Madison,
right?
And I couldn't do it. So, granted, they had Destroy All Monsters on that night, so it was okay. So I'm sitting at home watching TV.
That's true.
But
we're going back to Madison in October, though. We're going back.
Yeah. But it was killing me not to do the show. In a way, I wonder if doing the Robert Johnson thing is what, because I had been sick and I was feeling better. And because I really wanted to get healthy, we were playing at a Robert Johnson tribute in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
And I was hell bent that we were going to do that. But by the end of the week, I was sick again. So
yeah.
So, I've had pneumonia. It's no fun.
I've never been that sick in my entire life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You didn't end up in the hospital, though, or
no?
Oh, thank goodness.
No.
Close, I have a feeling, though. But you.
Yeah, if that, well, okay, we're gonna, if the antibiotics that I got the second time around hadn't helped, probably.
Welcome to Diseases of Chicago, a production.
I remember
our ailments and aches and pains.
Oh, my hip. Yeah.
Okay, so you wrote songs solo. So are you writing songs together now? Is that what?
Sort of.
There's a couple songs we've actually written to, like we sat down and wrote together. A couple of them.
Yeah. Like for example, which ones?
We sat down.
Giant Monsters.
Giant Monsters. Well,
okay.
That one I brought in, and then we fixed it together. The one we sat down and wrote together is called On a Friday Night. Like we actually sat in a room and wrote that song out at the same time.
Wrote out the lyrics.
It's more. I mean, it is more like I always equate it to oddly the way the Indigo Girls work, which is they write separately and then they bring it together and they work on the arrangements together. Or Lennon McCartney did the same thing or whatever. Lots of people do that, but that's how we work.
More thing to sneak in, like a recent song that we're doing. It's called "Destroy All Monsters" that I wrote. Eric had some particular ideas that have changed the song to where it is. So I mean, he's definitely co-wrote the song. Granted, I had the initial things, but I think we get a little bit of that.
Yeah, and I brought in the song Kroger Bab.
James was in on that.
And James Abood was in on that. But you also there was parts of that where I couldn't get. I knew what I wanted, and he helped me find it. So it's and then we play them almost as soon as we can because these songs work them out on the road. Like that's what we do is because even songs that we've recorded on our EPs or whatever have changed already. Like since then, like they're already not the same. Even something like Giant Monsters that we spent time recorded, put out. It's altered a little bit since just by being on the road.
Right, or you find this would work a little better, or you actually make a mistake and but this is better than what I was doing.
Exactly.
This is cool. I don't have that luxury. I end up going to as many open mic nights as I can. New songs and just. That's the best way to work. I mean, you've got your own personal as a writer, right?
And then what's nice about working as a duo is that he can say, let's try that up the tempo of this part."
Right.
The song Giant Monsters. I tried desperately to write a bridge for it. For ages. In fact, I have video footage of the bridge.
We were debating. Okay, how's the bridge going to go? How's the bridge? Did we? We just said we don't do a bridge.
Yeah, I think we both hated it. I was so convinced because the song's about Godzilla and all these things because we have a shared love of obviously of kaiju movies. And I thought, let's have a bridge about destroying a bridge. I was like, this is really clever.
There you go.
And I tried. And I'm sure he was the one who was like, this is really not working. So we cut it at no bridge.
No bridge. The other thing was how the arrangement that is pretty much what we have today was almost an afterthought because first it was going to be kind of punky or it's going to be this way, and then we just started doing this folkier version of it.
It's kind of we kind of put it as a lounge thing, as a joke. I wrote it to be like a psycho surf song, and then one time we sat down and just played it, and just as a joke started playing it all loungy, and that's the one that stuck. We both went, that's pretty good. So that's, I mean, as far as collaborating, it's a constant collaboration. But the seeds of the songs generally come from us by ourselves.
So in Destroy All Monsters, you wrote while you were with pneumonia, or while you were watching the movie?
Actually, I'd written it a little bit before. It was literally shown on TV. It's probably one of my favorite. It's close to being my favorite of that genre, and I just started coming up with the lines about it. And it's also sort of a tongue-in-cheek statement of intent about we're monsters that are going to, we're implying that we as a band are going to knock down cities and things like that too.
Yes.
So I wrote the basics for it fairly quickly, and then I brought it in, and Eric definitely helped me get, because we've got the chorus is a little bit more pronounced, which it's kind of a little more sing along, and just in general, it's now a better fit thanks to Eric's influence.
We both have a tendency to tell the other when we bring in a song. He'll say to me, or I'll say to him, and we wind up simplifying the things that we both bring in, because we both want to. You want to show off your chops a little bit and write a couple of chords in, or do a chord change, and then we'll both be let's just hold, or Nosferatu blues. I kept trying to just do this blues thing. He's like, let's hold that B7 a little longer. Really interesting talk for people who don't play guitar.
Well, that'll segue into talking about Graveyard Party.
Oh yeah.
I wanted to ask you about a couple of songs on it, and Nosferatu blues. Tell me about it. Where did it come from?
It's my favorite vampire movie. It's my favorite Dracula film, and it's a little over 100 years old. Silent Max Schreck plays, and And it's such a simple song. It's definitely a kind of a...
Right.
One of the things he brought to that was we slowed it down and he started playing kind of a swampy kind of feel to
Yeah,
it.
it has a little bit of a Creedence feel to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's simple. It's definitely the Creedence, but it's basically just it's an E7 chord.
Right.
Yeah.
And when my tremolo pedal is working, it's really good. If I remember correctly, you wanted me to do the vocal.
I did. That was when I said I think I want you to write this, because when we started the league and suddenly we had this identity that I was writing toward. It gave me a focus. So I was like, let's focus on monsters and dark stories and things like that. And I immediately went to Nosferatu, and it was and actually we mentioned Nosferatu in 2 songs live now. Like, I mean, he gets a mention.
Yeah, name checked.
Yeah, exactly. And it came out of that. It came out of it was a simple story to tell, because it's a simple story.
Yeah.
And it kind of clicked, and he liked it, but he thought I should sing it.
Right.
And that's just how
Somehow
it
we got to
stuck.
the point. It's like he had a better take, and what's really good is that as the songs evolved, it's become a good vocal showcase for him. It's one of the highlights of the set in terms of that.
Right.
You know, and I'm really happy about that part of it. And also, and also as a sidebar, as the song is winding down, Eric will throw some other lyrical things just over the, like he was doing Sundown by Gordon Lightfoot, which fit surprisingly well
Yeah.
into that.
And
then occasionally
enough
other
in
ones
that,
just for
yeah.
grins.
Yeah, I started doing Sundown because Sundown thematically fits,
Yeah,
you
right.
know, a vampire
Absolutely.
story. And then every once in a while, I'll just, to surprise him or to make him chuckle, I'll throw in like yummy, yummy, yummy. Or what did I throw in?
You did
other-
the old man down the road.
I've done the old man
Yeah,
down
yeah.
the road. Actually, that caused
twice.
that caused a drunk at Montrose Saloon to start yelling. He wanted to hear Center Field, and then he just when we said we don't really play any of that, he shifted gears and just started yelling covers. I want to hear covers, and we're like, we don't, you know,
We don't do covers.
We do,
Yeah.
we do like a handful of covers, like
Yeah.
at best. So.
I was playing in Plainfield on Friday, and a woman was really enjoying everything. Oh, I like everything you do. Can you play "Don't Stop Believing"? I said, I don't know. Sorry, I don't know that one. Cold Shoulder, done with.
Yeah,
it for the rest of the night.
yeah,
Like,
that's one of the
there are 20 songs I just played that you
Yeah.
liked, and I'm doing covers. You know?
yeah. I did a solo show one time, and if you guys check out the music, I don't sound like Aaron Neville,
Okay.
but at some point after this guy had been listening to me for about 45 minutes, he goes, "Do you know any Neville brothers?" And I'm like, "Have you been listening to me?" I don't, number one, and two, I'm like, I don't know much,
Okay.
but I know I don't know any Neville songs. So
Let me ask you about another song in there. I was checking through the songs today on Graveyard Party and Toast, and Pete, where did that come from? Because it's really dark.
it is a very dark song.
That came together surprisingly quickly.
It came together very quickly. I lie live. If you guys say spoilers, I lie and tell some crazy story about how I wrote it. Truth is, I was sitting around one day and I just had a dark thought. I'm like, dude, morticians ever get a body that they think is hot? Like, I mean, you can't turn off what you think is attractive.
Right.
So if suddenly someone comes in, and I'm like, that's a terrible, awful thing, I should write a song about it. So that's what it's about. Pete is a song about a coroner who likes his job, loves his job,
Likes
but
it a little too much.
and every once in a while he gets somebody comes in that he thinks, as the chorus says, "It's too bad you're dead because we could be lovers," and he never does it. Like in the song, I specify he never crosses the line, but yeah, it goes dark. And the strange thing, and it's a very well, it's a dark sounding song, and we use dark chords in it and things like that. But it's surprisingly upbeat. And when we recorded it, Dinse sent his 12-string for the solo. Sent his 12-string through an effects pedal, and just got the greatest sort of psychedelic sound on it. And I am always amazed how many women, especially, this is the weirdest part, how many women come up and say, "I really like that song about the coroner."
We were playing in Rockford on Friday.
Yeah.
And this was it in the second set? So, and there was a couple, and I'm going to say middle age or something. We start playing this song, and they listen to the lyrics, and they both start smiling. I mean, they're seeing the humor in it. I'm just like, okay, that works.
I mean, it's a dark comedy song.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't call it a comedy song, but it's got that sort of like dark humor to it.
And you know, no one's ever been offended by it. We've got people who come up.
If they
I
have,
really
they
like
just-
that song, but no one's ever said,
How dare you?
Although that's not the case with some of our songs, because we did have a gentleman not like what we were singing about, and we played. It all culminated in we did a cover of Nick Cave's "Up Jump the Devil,"
Okay.
which is he brought to the table, and it's so we do it so dark and it's a great dark song about the devil. And this guy got up, turned to. I found out later because he talked to a friend of mine. He said, "What was it? I think Archangel Michael is coming back. We're all doomed," and left. Like did not come back. Like walked away from us. So we're like, okay. And so when we say good time party darkness, that's what we're talking about. Is we're talking about, you know, the kind of darkness, the kind of dark material that makes you go, you know, like when you chuckle at a kill in a horror movie, like when there's a really good kill in a horror movie, or when Godzilla knocks down a building and you're like, oh, that's so cool. That's the kind of good time party darkness we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me when I saw you guys play live is that you guys have a sense of humor about what you're doing, but it's not a comedy act.
No, it's not.
Not at all.
We get Tenacious D.
Sometimes I think we worry about that people look at the Tenacious D thing. Nothing but respect for them,
Right.
but I mean, the fact that they're actually good musically, but people just think of them in a comedic sense, and I want people to. I like a sense of humor, but I don't want people to think that's all we're about.
And I think a lot of that also comes from the fact that Tenacious D. I mean, they lean into the comedy, but part of the comedy is their overblown identity,
Right.
like the way they present themselves so we do get that. I don't always see it because we don't. There's plenty of songs we do that don't even have a twinkle in their eye. They're just flat out dark,
Right.
and others that are really fun, like a song like the theme song or the title track, "Graveyard Party." People dance to that, and it's about partying in a graveyard, being dead, and dancing around in a graveyard. But people dance to it, so we try to make. The one thing we have to sell venues on to get booked is we're a good time, we're fun.
Yeah.
We're not. We do dark stuff, but we're not.
We are fun.
We are fun.
Is there a version of Pete out there where he does cross the line?
No.
No. Absolutely strict.
No, it's strict because it actually makes the end of the song even to me darker because he's like he leans into it. He doesn't cross the line, but then he'll pay.
His anguish is what.
His anguish is
Then you fade to black.
Okay, gotcha. So let's we'll talk about another song on there, Giant Monsters.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Is that about Trogdor?
It's not about Trogdor. I do have Trogdor the Burninator on my arm. It's about any giant monster. I wrote it because one of the first things he and I clicked with as friends was our love of kaiju films. He's a much bigger fan than I am. I'm still a novice. I'm
especially a fan of the Toho stuff.
Right.
It was years before I realized that Gamera was not part of the Toho thing. But,
same here.
But also excellent.
Yes, and so I sat down and said I'm going to write a song about that. So, again, it's gone through permutations, and he's altered some of the lyrics because he sings it, and it's my wife calls it an earworm. People come to see it, say they can't get out of their head for a few days, and it's kind of one of our signature songs. He and I, we're like, well, we don't always have to play it, but we kind of always have to play it. It's like
we were playing a set last Sunday, and I said, we don't have to do that. He goes, yeah, we do. And he's right.
Yeah, because I'm like, because it it's a nice. It actually is a nice. There's a nice counterbalance between it and Destroy All Monsters now because it's like there's a bit of a theme and an arc in that. But yeah, Giant Monsters just became this. It's an earworm, and it's been played on the radio. It's been played. It's our.
Good for you guys.
Yeah.
It really is also a perfect example of the collaborative process because, like I said, the bulk of the song came from Eric, and he's, saying, and I don't know if he just said you should be singing it. So I'm like, okay, and there's a lead line.
I wrote this for you.
There's a lead line in it that he assumed I would play, and I said, why don't you do it? You wrote the line, and it's now a good showcase for his
guitar
lead,
playing.
for his lead on the thing. And we even got, like, I think the one thing we have done, it's not quite a bridge, but there's a little extended part where he gets to play a little bit more, very tastefully, of course, before it goes back into the last verse. So it's a good collaborative effort on that front.
Yeah. And he improvised. He forgot a lyric one time we were playing it live, and he improvised what is the best line in the entire song, which is Giant Monsters baking that radioactive cake.
Yeah.
He forgot what the actual line was and sang that on stage. I said, keep it.
That's it. Put that one in.
Because it makes people, even if they're only half listening, go, did he just say radioactive cake?
No one's asked me about that, but yeah.
You know, we both came into this strong. I was solo. I always felt I was a better vocalist than guitarist. I was fine with chords and rhythm, and he came into this more like doing vocals if he had to.
Right.
He felt more
lead player,
more of a lead, and. He has been nothing but supportive and allowed me to become a much better guitarist, and he has opened up as a vocalist. And so, if you see us live, there is no like we trade off leads. We trade off lead vocals. It's a true musical collaboration too.
One of the best things that's happened. It's a song we did early on that I'd written that it's called Serial Killer Chic, and because he plays slide, we just decided there'd be a slide solo.
Yeah, there sure is.
And as that song has evolved, the slide solo is now like a big part of it. Right. There was we were playing a gig last Saturday, and a friend of his was there. Was it Gonzo's? It was telling us was that one? Oh no, yeah, it was at Gonzo's. So when he's playing the slide thing, and the guy comes in and says, you guys have like a fretless guitar going that's really cool sound. I'm like, what? Oh,
yeah, no, it was
a slide.
It was the owner of the place. He was in the back in the kitchen, and he heard me playing the slide. And I throw a ton of effects on the slide.
Yeah,
it's like
very
this
sonic.
It's like this nightmare slide because the song itself is he wrote based on the Dead Zone.
Right.
Slightly on the Dead Zone.
Yeah.
But it's about a serial killer who thinks he's cool, basically. And so I do like these weird. I actually now play with two slides. One on this pinky, doing like weird stuff up here with a lot of delay, and then that goes off, and I play regular slide here. And he came out from the kitchen because he didn't know what he was like. He's like, was that because he's a bass player? The owner of this place is a bass player. And he goes, was that a fretless guitar? And I'm like, no, it's just weird.
And that's
my technique.
Yeah, was Porch Fest not this year, but the year before we played it, and somebody taped that and put it on, and I was listening to it. Oh, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, it sounded really cool. It sounds really cool when there's a lot of open space.
So those techniques where you got to turn your back so nobody steals what you're doing.
Yeah, no, honestly, it all comes from David Gilmour live at Pompeii. Watching him play Saucer Full of Secrets with all the delay and echo with his slide just making noise with the guitar. I've always kept that in the back of my head, and I haven't had a lot of chance to use it, and this gave me that chance. Because he said, the weirder you get, the better it is. And I'm like, you sure I want to play pretty?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it's weird. I'm like, okay.
I have one of my songs called Catapult Launch, and
great name.
I wanted another element to it, so I asked one of my friends to play. I said, just play a solo. Use as much whammy bar as possible.
Yeah.
I said, just craziness, like Adrian Blue on steroids. And he sent me 3 takes, and take 1 was the best. So
that's awesome. Yeah,
excellent.
Yeah, and sometimes noise is the best thing for it. You know, I mean, I can try to, like he was saying about Giant Monsters, it's a very tasteful solo. It's always the same. It's the way I play it. But sometimes noise, it makes the moment. It lifts it up somehow.
And you can improvise it. It's always different.
Yeah.
All right. So now your latest release is Toast.
Yeah.
And I was listening through your stuff this morning as I was getting ready to come out to the studio, and it's dark, but it's more human and not so much fantasy dark.
Yeah.
So are these from personal stories, or is this also from literature? Where do these come from?
This actually, it's weird, but we don't approach these like concept albums or anything, but we try to thematically select songs that all hang together. Okay. We made Graveyard Party to come out on like Halloween week.
Okay.
We made Graveyard Party to be a Halloween album, and up until Graveyard Party, we'd been mostly acoustic with a little bit of effects.
Yeah.
By the time we got to Toast, I think Toast better represents what we do live, because we wanted. It all came from him. He said, "Let's do a song where all of our songs are in the key of E."
Yeah.
Oh.
Originally, I wanted to call it erratic.
Yeah.
To get the sense of humor.
Yeah.
And this is also a good thing. Just shows the collaborative effort. We got to a certain point, and Eric says, "I don't think it's working." I'm like, "You're absolutely right. We can't. That doesn't
As a
work
title, just as a title.
anymore."
Right.
All the songs are still in E. So
Yeah.
if you're
And a couple of the songs that I originally wanted to do, we just took out and put other ones in.
yeah, yeah, and so I think
We're still in E.
we just wound up selecting the darker songs and leaning into a little more production, like day drinking in particular. Like there's percussion on it, which we hadn't done, and there's like multiple gang shouting on it and things like that. And
I
then
did like 3 guitar overdubs on my part.
and Wages of Sin had been very different when we went into the studio. He had stripped it back, which made me have to go and write a whole new like guitar line for it, which came out so much better now because it's just this. At that same show last week, somebody said, "Yeah, your music would really fit like a mid '90s horror indie film," and then we both said, "From Dusk Till Dawn," and he's like, "Yeah." And so, and that's Wages of Sin to me. That's the Lonely Road sort of darkness.
So, all right, so you bring a lot of when I saw you play live, elements of, like you said, slide and tremolo and all that. I mean, how do you guys prepare for a show? How do you set up a set list? Let's say.
We've got. That's a great question.
It's a hard question now because, like, as we mentioned, there's certain songs that we kind of feel like we have to play.
Yeah. First, we look at the venue.
All right.
Are we playing with, how long is the set?
Yeah.
If it's a 3-hour set, we have to play everything.
Yeah.
Right.
And actually, at a 3-hour set, like the other night, we actually have to like do a couple of solo numbers at the top of one of the sets.
Okay.
Because for time's
Gotta
sake.
stretch them out.
To stretch them out.
Yeah.
So we're about 4 songs away from having 3 solid hours.
All right.
Yeah.
And there are songs we used to do we could bring back, but we haven't rehearsed them for a while. And we rehearse a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We practice a lot. He's a rehearsal nut. Like he likes to warm up. He likes to practice.
Typical guitarist.
Yeah, no, he's like, and honestly,
It's not even just about the guitar. To me, it's about, I know so many bands that half-ass it.
Yeah, they come up cold and
Yeah, they come up cold and they're like, oh yeah, well, no.
I'll be warmed up by the third song. Don't worry about it.
And for me, it feels because we're tight enough that we can, if we want to, we can go boom, 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 and I like a band that can do that when they need to.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So a set always comes down to: are we playing with other bands? Are these other bands going to bring in people who've never seen us before? And if that's the case, we got to play the hot 30, hot 45. Like Porch Fest is a perfect example. It's not a time to try out new material.
Right.
It's not unless we really think it's going to work.
Okay.
Then yeah, but so it just comes down to how long do we have to play.
Right.
And then, if we're doing like an hour or 2 hours, that's when we can start having a little more fun and playing the deeper cuts, as Mr. Dinse calls them, the deep cuts. And the other thing about practice is, we're not young. Like, so, like, I forget
The
songs.
secret is out. We are not young.
We're not young kids. I don't know if you guys are,
I was going to say seasoned musicians.
Which helps because, it doesn't take a ton of practice to get back on but even, like, we usually take November and December off because we both have day jobs that kind of require that.
Okay.
When we come back in January, we have to relearn a couple of things that we play all the time. And
every once in a while, there was one time we had a stretch, maybe it was a few weeks, and I'm like, wait, how's this going again?
yeah.
And it's very rare, but I'm like,
And
how do I not remember this song that I wrote?
Right. It can be the song you wrote, or it definitely happens when you didn't write the song. When it's like a chord progression he came up with, and like we've got this song called "Get Out of My Tomb," which is a whole story in itself. But he'll start playing. I'll be like, oh yeah, right. And like if you're watching me on stage, you'll actually see my face go, oh right, yeah. This. Even though we practiced it an hour before the show, right?
So there was the story of, like, hearing about the Stones getting ready for a tour,
Sure.
and then getting together after half a year or whatever, and they throwing on a CD and listening, and
Yeah.
Start playing along to the CD, and it's just the Rolling Stones doing it.
We've got a Dropbox folder that has all of our demos and all of our songs in it, and if we need to revisit anything, we can.
I heard about that with the Kinks when the Pretenders made "Stop Your Sobbing" a hit.
Okay.
The Kinks had to go back and relearn the song.
Yeah.
How did we do this?
And for a long time, we sat on stools at most of our gigs and had music stands.
Right.
And I hate having music stands. And there's plenty of people who do it, or they have a and it happens. For me, it's a personal point of pride to try to remember things, and practice helps that.
Right.
I'm going to be I got hired to do it like a solo birthday party thing here next month, and I'm going to have the music in front of me. Right. But there's something about being able to just jump up, plug in, and go.
Right.
That I take pride in it, and the fact that we practice so much and play enough out that we're really tight as a unit.
I'm really
very tight.
glad because I was willing to lean a little bit, like, we can have the stands. And when Eric kind of said we should get away from that, I'm really glad we did that. Especially because I used to be like, we're doing 3 hours, man. I'm going to need to know how to play that one. And we're past that.
And please, no shame to anybody who does use those. I mean, that's fine. It's just for me and for us, I think we want to be more rock and roll than folk.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was a folk guy. I was a sort of a pop folk solo guy.
Okay.
And to me, just getting up, jumping around, getting off the stools, and bouncing around is a little more rock and roll to me.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would just make a rule that unless the situation like Carrie's, there's no room up there, so I have to. Have to sit down at that stage. But
it's such a great venue.
You can
I love that place.
I love Carrie's, but I don't know how you could even sit down up there if you're just solo.
I put my chair all the way in the corner, actually I do set up my mic stand kind of like this.
I did too.
So it's kind of off to the side. And
I need to get a new mic stand for that place because like my mic stand will only work as I try to do it on the side.
Our mic stands are all duct taped, and it's like we do we walk in, we've got all our stuff, it's all stickered up, everything looks beat up, and
being road dogs, so
absolutely,
road wear,
absolutely.
But I was gonna say so now I stand up all the time because also it's better for the diaphragm and for singing.
You burn more calories too.
If I'm doing an original show, absolutely no.
Yeah,
it's got to be all coming from here and from my heart, But I'm doing 3 hours at a brew pub, and I've got 700 songs on my iPad. If somebody requests an odd one, I go, during the break, let me go over it again, and I'll play it next set.
That was one of the other things. Is one of the things is if you have a music stand like that, people are more inclined to come up and request.
Right.
And we don't do request unless you're requesting our stuff. We just don't do it. It's just not who we are.
And happily, it doesn't really happen. Except for the one like the monitor.
Every once in a while, somebody will come up and say something, but it's not real often.
Interestingly enough, at Carrie's, the last time we were there, we did have people come to the stage, but it wasn't to request. Like one guy wanted to hear a song we played in the first set, which was like a tremendous ego.
Which was very cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there was the weirdest one was also at Carrie's. This woman comes up and she starts like sort of talking. We couldn't hear her. And
in the middle of a song, not like in a break. Like we're playing, and she's standing there, down there. Because Carrie says, if you guys haven't been there, it's a very high stage. You have to climb up on a radiator to get onto it. And she's standing down there, just sort of talking. Yeah, and I'm like,
I thought.
And I look over at him, and he looks at me. And then she came back after the show. It turned out she just wanted to talk about his cool guitar.
She's like, "What is that guitar you got?" I'm like, "It's a Godin. I never heard a Godin." I'm like, "Well, let's talk about guitars."
Now you have.
Yes.
I'm a big Godin fan. I listen.
You had 12-string Godin. Oh, that's awesome.
So, okay, so we're talking about some of the places you played. You love Carrie's. What's your spot for Indian food on Devon?
And so far, it's been we've played Carrie's twice. It's called Nan on Devon in 4 doors down,
right next door.
Love it. Yeah.
Get the chicken 65.
Oh, is that good? I haven't had that. I've had the tandoori chicken. I've had the chicken korma there.
I had the chicken biryani. It's the best chicken biryani.
Yeah, and they're non. I mean, lives up to their name. Yeah,
and it's much better. There's a family place across the street called Usamia.
Yeah.
Stick with Nan on Devon.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you for
the one thing I've thought about. You're going to get into Indian food. Last time we played there, I walked down the street. I was walking a friend of mine back to her car, and there were places that it was 11 o'clock and they were still open. I'm like, I could go get Indian food at 11 o'clock at
Yeah.
night.
I would
love
love
to
that
do
house in the summertime is amazing outside there.
Yeah, so I'm sure after a gig, usually you wind up at a Mexican place,
Right.
having a burrito or some late night tacos at the taqueria. But having a
Late night Indian
Middle
food
Eastern
would be
or Indian option
It's dynamite.
is awesome. Yeah.
So, next time.
Let me ask you guys, what are some of your favorite places to play in the southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois area now?
Cary's is quickly becoming one because the crowd there is really good.
Very receptive.
They're very receptive.
Great vibe, Yeah, I like the vibe about it, and we made friends with the bartender right away when he found out we liked Malort, and
we should discuss Malort at some point.
Okay.
Probably 'cause we're still trying to get them to sponsor us.
Cary's is one. We got a lot of affection for Phyllis's.
Phyllis's,
They always welcome us there.
Yeah, we do. We've been calling it League Night, so they give us the evening, and then we bring in a couple other artists to play with us, and it's generally once a month. Sometimes we go a couple of month gap, but which is so funny because Clem, who owns it, who's also a musician, he has rarely actually stayed to watch us, but he loves us.
Okay.
Phyllis's, it's one of those places where when I first started doing solo music about 12 years ago, I was told, play Phyllis's and then get out. But I love it. I never feel more like a musician than when I'm like at Phyllis's because they don't have a crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So people just wander in from other places.
That's good.
And
Yeah.
if you can hook them, and then they hang out, and they're already half in the bag, so which is good, which is great. So, and we have had great nights there. We've had
Ant nights.
we've had meh nights.
So the biggest Ant night was there was a Bears game in Chicago being broadcast. So we get there, we're getting ready to play, and I think we went on at 10:30 wait for the game to finish. Or those times when there's a basketball game going on and
Or
people are
hockey or
watching
anything,
and they're watching that instead of us.
Yeah,
Because they know the set, they'll just go, whoa! No, not us.
Then of course the best part of playing Phyllis's is going next door to Smoke Daddy and getting barbecue before the show. So.
Yeah, you got to associate every room with some kind of meal and post-gig meal.
And then I think one of the best venues anybody can play in the city is Gallery Cabaret, hands down. It's just such a cool room to play.
Yeah. Another place that has great history.
Okay.
I mean, he and I both played there years before. I remember playing there when the neighborhood was still sketchy too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
And then Montrose Saloon we play. Montrose Saloon is a great room.
Yeah, I'm working on trying to get Eric over here. So.
Oh, he'd be great on here. Oh yeah, absolutely.
With all the music he's done and part of.
Yeah.
The vibe. There's another one where the vibe there is just fantastic.
They love music. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even during COVID, they had music out in the yard.
Yeah.
Going.
Early on, I did a solo show there, and then we did, just before they opened, we did one of an outdoor thing. It was one of those things where I'm thinking, it's going to be a nice spring day. It was cold as hell.
It was
We're both
freezing.
wearing our coats.
There's pictures of it where we were in under the tent. There was a heater in the tent, and we had our coats on.
Yeah.
And then we play at O's Tap, which is a newer venue for live music. Not newer, but it hasn't been around a ton for a real long time. But I do want to plug this place we just played last Sunday.
What's that?
Which is called Reed's Local.
Okay, where's that?
It's over on Belmont. It's a few blocks, like 3 or 4 blocks away from Kuma's Corner.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So it's on that end of Belmont, and they are such a cool little place. The couple that own it, he's a former touring musician.
Okay.
And they've just got. We played with a couple of really cool, like one band who was touring called Afterbirth Cartoons, who were touring from Phoenix, and we just through emails I managed to link up with them. Yeah. But it's a really cool little space, and they've got an inbuilt audience who likes music.
It was once. It's got 1 foot definitely in the neighborhood bar, but the area for performing is actually comfortable if you're not just completely crammed into a corner. I mean,
like the old Beat Kitchen style, where it's a bar in front. You got to go all the way.
It was like up. And it was a very pleasant experience.
Very cool.
And then I think one of the things, especially being out in the suburbs, about playing in the city, because people out, since I'm from Aurora, he's from Naperville. We're kids of the burbs. We spend way more time in Chicago because it is hard to get booked in the suburbs if you're not a cover band.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's you'd have to lean into the coffee house thing, and those are getting fewer and further between.
Right.
And then we sort of pedaled and amped our way out of the coffee house scene because we can't really do what we do
You
anymore.
unplugged.
Unplugged
league.
Exactly. We really are like a dive bar band, and we always joke about Malort, but we started sort of like leaning to the Malort thing and tagging him in Instagram photos.
Yeah.
Carl Jepsen follows us on Facebook, the guy who owns the company.
Yeah, so they do.
Because it's a because it was a Chicago thing, so I always made sure like we would take pictures with the tamale guy,
Right.
things like that, just to make part of our identity being Chicago.
To be fair, we actually have learned to like Malort.
We've learned to like Malort.
I mean, it's still a funky taste, but it is. The more you have it, the less.
We're not
obnoxious
never going to claim it's good,
Right.
Well,
but
You guys are way ahead of me, though.
Yeah.
I'm still not near.
There, from one of the earlier league shows, once we were coming out of COVID, there were pictures online of us doing the first shots of Malort, and I had the best face where it was that devil.
Yeah, the
Oh my
Malort face,
god!
oh my goodness, what is that? I have tried to create something I called the Unholy Trinity, which is a shot of Malort, a shot of Jägermeister, and then either PBR or Old Style. One of the two, or Miller. I don't know.
You did the. We were at one place where you did the mix of Jaeger and Malort in one.
Yeah, it was. I did do that. Yeah, and
You're very.
that was
Did you finish
a.
that?
I did finish it. It was. It made the bartender almost wretched, but it was awesome.
Goldschlager,
Oh, there you
Malort,
go.
and Jaeger. There's your holy trinity right there. Or Rumpelmans.
Let's try that Thursday.
Okay.
No.
We're-
Rumpelmans is the devil's. That's like.
Right, you can write a song about it.
Or make it lime Rumpelmints to make it even more disgusting.
wow.
So it's
I never even heard of
minty.
that.
I've had that minty lime.
Never-
Oh my goodness.
We haven't done this in the league, but when I was in the band, we were in a place in Ohio.
All right.
We did pickleback.
Yeah.
Wow,
One time.
that was something else. Okay, now you get drunken
Yeah,
stuff.
now we're getting to booze talk. So let's I'll ask you now that we've kind of gone through and talked a little bit. I want to talk a little bit some Chicago stuff and your influences, and we're going to go real quick back and forth.
Yeah.
Your musical Mount Rushmore.
Ooh.
You first.
All right.
Uh,
We'll just bounce back and forth.
I'd say, in terms of league, Warren Zevon,
Okay. Warren Zevon one. Okay.
Tom Waite. Oh, go back and
Let's
forth.
go back and forth. It'll make it easier.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Tom Waits.
Okay.
Uh,
Tom Waits.
Indigo Girls, actually.
Indigo Girls.
Yeah.
Okay. They taking up one spot or two?
Just the one.
Oh, okay.
Lemmy.
Lemmy. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Uh,
I was talking to a friend last night, and he's like, "Well, it'll be hard for me to decide." I go, "Okay, you got Neil Peart and Lemmy. You got two spots to fill. Who else you gonna put in there?"
Yeah.
I'll let you have them. It's huge. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You go. Take another one.
Bob Dylan.
Okay.
Because Tom Waits is one of mine too. I'll say the Cramps because finding the Cramps has helped inform what the league is to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Cramps, Lemmy, to me, kind of once you realize that Lemmy has always been a more rock and roll than just like a heavy guy.
Right.
So it sort of led me into the kind of Cramps like that. Said Dylan.
Tom Waits. You said.
It's hard to pick one blues guy. I'd probably have to go with Muddy Waters because that was what really got me into the blues. But in the last few years, it's been John Lee Hooker.
Right.
Because I got a little bit more in common with John Lee Hooker vocally than I did Muddy. Because Muddy had soul, and John Lee Hooker was just.
Well, it was. He used to. We're from the '80s in Chicago and '90s. Used to hang out at Exit a little bit, and the old one
On Wells.
On Wells.
Yeah.
And one thing we noticed is like the rock guys like Motorhead, the punk guys like Motorhead, the new wave guys like Motorhead.
Yeah.
It's like that's one crosses every genre.
And I'm gonna my final one. I'm gonna have to go since I was such an '80s pop kid. Like
Okay.
it's what I grew up with. I didn't really discover punk until I was 40.
All right.
But my biggest influence growing up at that point was Bryan Adams, the songwriting Bryan Adams. I loved his, especially, and even now, even with league songs, there's a song called "Sleeping with My Watch On," which is not in any way a Bryan Adams song, but the structure is.
Yeah.
Like it is, I can see the Bryan Adams DNA in there. Yeah.
There's actually one of my favorite songs by him, and believe it or not, he sings it with Sporty Spice.
I know that song.
That's
Yeah.
Great. What a great melody.
When You're Gone. I love that
what
song.
Great hooks in that
It's
song.
a great song. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go into some Chicago questions. Go-to place for pizza.
Oh. I'm going to say Giordano's.
Okay.
have to be careful because we play at some pizza places.
In Chicago.
In Chicago.
Because the Gonzo's is in Sandwich is great. But, we
but
play
it's
there,
not in Chicago.
But it's not in Chicago. What's the place you used to?
Ramondo's.
Yeah, Ramondo's out in North Aurora.
Yeah, that was
great pizza.
What's the place? It was Kitty Corner from Julius Meinl. I can't think of it. I want to say it was a little family place. Gaetano? Something like that.
You know what's another good? It's got the whale in it. I can't remember the name of the place now.
I'm a Southside guy, so
honestly, I don't eat pizza in the city a lot. Definitely, I could tell you the Mexican places we stop,
have at it.
There, I can't even think of the name of the place, but we used to play a place on.
That was a favorite.
What was the name of the street, Tom?
It's on Irving Park.
Irving Park. We used to play a place called Pub OK, which is no longer there. It was a Polish bar. And you had to wait until 2:30 to get paid because you got a cut of the entire evening. Was how it worked. So we would finish up at midnight and we would walk down to the street to this
go for dinner and
24-hour Mexican place. I can't think of the name of it. It's on Irving Park, but they served enormous portions, like to the point where you're like, are they serving us like illegal meat? Yeah.
It's one of those things like the whole it's that late at night. You're really hungry, so you think I'm going to want to have all this food,
right?
And then
that's a bad idea.
Well, it's great leftovers the next day.
Sure. And I am sad that the Hollywood Grill no longer is 24 hours. They only do once COVID broke that, because that was a great place to just wander into and have a Tom Waits evening at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Nighthawks kind of.
Nighthawks at the diner, absolutely.
Okay, Sears Tower or John Hancock for view of the city?
Sears.
I'd Sears, yeah.
I'm not calling it Wills.
Neither will I.
White Sox or Cubs?
Oh, Cubs. I grew up. It was my grandmother's big thing.
I'm not really a sports guy, but I'm going to go with the Cubs because that's like a family tradition. One of the saddest things I think is my father did not live to see the Cubs win the World Series, and he even said that when he was I may never see them win the World Series, and unfortunately he didn't. So
I played a solo show at. It was called Julia. It's still called Julius Mountain. I think it's on Southport. Okay. I forget. Yeah. But it's right there, and it was the opening weekend of the World Series or the playoffs.
You remember the one early league show that we played at the Sandlot?
We played the Sandlot. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
and there was a Cub game.
And we had to wait for them to open up the street to be able to park and go into the bar.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're doing music anymore.
It didn't work out that well.
And
they certainly didn't keep it because of us.
Yeah.
And I like to end the interview with a kind of a little bit of a fun thing.
Yeah.
Would you rather question?
Sure.
Pick a number from 1 to 10.
6.
9.
Would you rather have only breakfast foods or dinner foods for the rest of your life?
Breakfast food.
Why is that?
I don't know. I just first of all, breakfast for dinner is awesome, which means that I could do sausage, pancakes, French toast especially. I'm a French toast guy as opposed to the other two options. But yeah, breakfast food, I think, especially if you expand that out to like Mexican breakfast or like
rancheros,
or an Irish breakfast or something like that. You got a lot of options. I'm not I don't have a lot of rules about food, about my like when to eat something, because I'll tell somebody I'm having something, because cold pizza is always the best breakfast.
Absolutely.
So for me, breakfast food.
I think have something with hollandaise sauce on it.
Oh yeah, some Benedict.
All type of Benedicts. Yeah, there's my go-to pizza place is Palermo's on 63rd and Hamlin.
Oh, okay.
I know that name. Yeah.
And you got another one on 95th Street, 95th and Cicero, but they have a sweet sauce, so it's perfect for breakfast pizza.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
All right, so you said 9?
Yes, he did.
Okay. Would you rather be forced to sing along to every song you hear or dance to every song you hear?
Every song?
Every song.
I'm going to say sing along.
Okay, why is that?
Because I can do that in my car, I can do that walking down the street, I can do that in my living room, and there's just some places I ain't going to dance.
Yeah. If you're compelled by a curse to dance, every time, you'd have to stop your car in the expressway.
Yeah. And also,
gotta dance.
There's just certain songs you can't dance to them. Like, here's Close to the Edge by Yes. I'm not dancing to that.
Right. What was that? There was somebody put a meme together of bad songs for strippers to dance to, and they're all like, "Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald."
Oh my God!
Fellows, it's but good to know ya. Whoa.
I would pay good money to see that. To see a stripper strip to the record. First of all, the song is 50 minutes long. By the way, that is one of the few covers I can play at any given moment. You could hand me a guitar now, and I could do that song word for word.
It's in my iPad, and I've had it requested twice.
I love it.
I did it on the day he passed, because I had.
Oh yeah, me too. So did I. Yeah.
Gig that day, so I was like, I got it. Sorry guys, I gotta play this.
I was lucky enough to see him once.
Oh, really?
I got to see him. My dad called me sometime in the mid '90s. He had a date that fell through, and he's like, "Hey, you want to go see Gordon Lightfoot tonight at the Holiday Star?" I'm like, "Yeah." Mm-hmm. And that guy took requests. That guy
really?
at intermission, you could just go and drop a piece of paper on the stage. I mean, generally his songs were what they were requesting at that point.
Right.
But
Well, my favorite Gordon Lightfoot album is the Sundown album.
Yeah.
Everything on there is just fantastic.
Oh.
and that documentary they did a few years ago, I think it's on Netflix or Hulu or something. It
Bob
was
Dylan's
great.
favorite songwriter.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, you guys have a huge social media presence.
Oh yeah.
Where can we find you?
Well, wherever. I'd say the best place to find us is just go to theleagueoferics.com.
Okay.
The is in there, so it's theleagueoferics.com.
Yes.
And
No spaces, no dashes, no just the
no
League of
space,
Erics.
just
Okay.
the League of Erics with a C, by the way.
Yeah.
Anybody with a K is the devil. That's okay. You're fine, but you know.
We want to make that straight right away.
Yeah.
ERIC.
ERC. So it's theleagueoferics.com, and it's basically a Linktree page with links to Instagram, which is probably our big social hub.
Yeah.
That feeds out into everything. We do have a TikTok presence, but again, Instagram, we put all the videos up there, and we do little 1-minute documentaries of everything we do and things like that. And
There's Facebooks for you old people.
Facebook is there.
I only say that because a couple days ago I found out from my niece and nephews that's where the old people.
Yeah, it's where the old people hang now.
I still have a Hotmail account that I use regularly.
Yeah, I still got a Yahoo account. Yeah, an old Yahoo account. We're not on MySpace. That's about the only place we're not.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we should,
Can I tell you something? Can I tell you something funny about MySpace real quick?
Yeah.
My son is also a musician, and he is getting a lot of traction because he is making. There's a nostalgic movement for MySpace deathcore metal.
wow.
And they call it MySpace deathcore. So it's like 20-year-old music that people used to put on MySpace. And so he's created a track, and he's getting traction. Like in 4 days, he's gotten like all these like Instagram followers because it's called MySpace deathcore. And I'm like, all right, man, whatever.
Yeah, well,
Should we work up that deathcore song we've been talking about?
Finally, yes.
Yeah. So you got a avenue for it now then too.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Absolutely.
I know you guys got a gig to get to, so
Yes, we do.
it's the life of a musician.
Yep. Bremen Cafe in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.